Hello again. One of the things that I've noticed lately is that people who are broadly speaking of progressive and liberal outlook tend to be very reluctant to accept modern scientific research. A lot of their views and opinions seem to be shaped by ideology rather than evidence, and they tend to recoil from any new scientific discovery which runs counter to their own prejudices and their own ideology. Since the end of the Second World War, it has been customary to accept that things like education and academic achievement are largely down to environmental factors such as social class, family structure, educational level of parents, and so on. These things certainly play a role, but they're not nearly as important as an individual's DNA, that is to say, his or her genes. If you want to predict whether a child will attend university, then a simple genetic test is the best way of finding out. In much the same way, if you want to find out who's liable to be prone to developing a psychosis in later life, then studying family conditions and life history is much less use than a genetic test. This is disturbing, of course, because it throws into doubt an awful lot of the assumptions which we take so much for granted. Why do so many black people in this country get diagnosed as having schizophrenia, say? Well, it's not because of Eurocentric or racist psychiatrists or the experience of living in a racist society, but rather because people of sub-Saharan African heritage have a genetic disposition to be more at risk of things like schizophrenia than white Europeans. A genetic test shows that their polygenic risk score is much higher. So it is that when we hear that the Open University is offering free degree courses, but only to black students in this country, it seems at first sight to some people only fair, because black students are underrepresented at the Open University. We must encourage them by offering free tuition. I give a link to these scholarships, only available to black people, in the description to this video. You see, not only do black people not sign up to study with the OU as often as white ones, when they do so, they're less likely to gain a degree, or if they do get a degree, it's less likely to be a good one. This, by the way, is also true of every university in the United Kingdom. Black students are much less likely to get first or upper seconds. Just as used to be done with schizophrenia, those who are out of touch with the modern world treat this as a sociological problem to be dealt with by giving them free places at the Open University. In fact, when predicting academic success in life, a genetic test is far more useful than anything else. Research might show that 10% of the difference between children getting good results at school is attributable to the family's socio-economic background, that is to say, the social class and income of their parents. School grades, according to Ofsted, account for around 4% of the differences in achievement at school. But genetic differences are responsible for 25% of that difference, the difference in outcomes through education at school. In other words, looking at a baby's DNA at birth is the most reliable method of predicting whether he or she will get to university in later life and do well there. The thing holding people back at university is almost certainly not racial prejudice or socio-economic conditions or anything else like that. It's likely to be a simple matter of genetics. That is not to say that we should not encourage all pupils to do their best at school and ensure that all have equal access to university, but offering people free degrees on racial grounds, as the Open University is now doing, is pointless and ethically dubious. The fact is that just as with schizophrenia, Alzheimer's and certain learning difficulties, there are racial variations, and we must work with these facts rather than pretending that they do not exist.